Welcome to Illuminating Catholics, podcast of the Diocese of Sioux City. I'm Dawn Prosser, Director of Communications for the Diocese. Together with Carmen Bauer of the Faith Formation Office, we will shed light upon topics of faith in the modern church. Our guests include Catholic clergy, religious sisters, and other experts in their fields to help us understand what's happening in the church today. We will explore issues, even the tough ones, and to find answers to common questions about Catholicism. Thank you for joining us for today's Illuminating Catholics, shedding light to understand the modern church. Welcome back to Illuminating Catholics. I'm Dawn Prosser, Director of Communications for the Diocese of Sioux City.
And I'm Carmen Bauer, the Director of Faith Formation for the Diocese of Sioux City.
We'd like to thank everyone for following our episodes and subscribing. We're just really pleased that you've taken interest in our awesome guests and their knowledge and helping us understand facets of the faith. I do want to have a little public service announcement. If you listened to our very first podcast when Carmen and I were introducing ourselves and the podcast and why we're doing this, talked about our history of podcasts. So if any of you out there are lectors, if you do the readings at church, there is a podcast on usccb.org. Go to daily readings. And if you can't pronounce those Old Testament names like I cannot, go there and there's a little podcast and they read the reading to you and you can hear how to pronounce things like Nebuchadnezzar, which I recently butchered.
That's an excellent resource.
So that was a little public service announcement. And also our episodes, the audio is on our YouTube, our diocesan YouTube channel. So you can find us there as well. So today we're really excited. We have the president of our sole Catholic university in the diocese, Dr. Matthew Draud of Briar Cliff University. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, President Draud. It's so nice that you are here today with us. Before we jump into talking about Briar Cliff, I think this would be a great opportunity for our listeners to learn more about you. So can you just tell us a little bit about where you are from, where you grew up?
Yeah, I grew up in basically the greater Cincinnati area. I was born in Covington, Kentucky. And I until I graduated college, I lived in essentially northern Kentucky. So after that, I moved to Louisiana. I did a couple of years there working on a master's thesis. After living in Louisiana for a couple of years, moved to Pennsylvania, where I worked on my PhD in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania at Lehigh University. And after that, got my first job. Well, actually spent a little time in Washington, D.C. I worked for Congress for a year. As I was completing my PhD, and after that I moved on to my first full-time faculty position in New York. I lived in Long Island, New York for 16 years, worked for a university there called Long Island University, and after that went to Georgia. I was at Armstrong State University, then up to Michigan at Siena Heights University. It's a small Catholic university as well. And then down to Abilene, Texas, McMurray University, and then finally here to Briar Cliff. So that's not just where I grew up, but that was the whole string.
That's okay.
Yes. Well, I have a very important question regarding Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Since you grew up in that area, would you consider yourself a Bengals fan?
I am a huge Bengals fan.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
It is very unfortunate.
Now we're not going to get violent here.
You're a Chiefs fan.
Absolutely, I am, yes.
Yeah, I do love Patrick Mahomes. I'm a big fan.
Love to hear it.
A Travis Kelce fan. There are several others, that I love on the team. So I'm, because I've moved around a lot, I have, a strong kind of hometown love for the Bengals. But I also, I've lived in Texas, so I like Dallas. I lived in New York. I love the Giants. My son is a huge Giants fan. We were Eli Manning fans, so I'm a little bit more eclectic in my football loves.
You're always welcome to Red Kingdom. You're always ready.
Say Carmen is not
okay,
eclectic.
I'm not going to go that far.
Yeah.
When the Bengals play the Kansas City, it's.
I have extra jerseys we can share.
Oh my.
So you definitely, you have so much experience throughout the whole country in higher education. What really drew you to work in that world? And throughout your many years in the world of higher education, what have you seen in the students and what kind of draws you to continue to want to work for them and serve them? Yeah,
it's a great question. I think looking back, it actually was the true love of the discipline that I followed that got me into the game, and the discipline was biology. And when I was in high school, I went to Covington Latin School. It's a a 4-year high school it's Catholic high school in Covington, Kentucky. And while I was there, I knew I absolutely loved science, and that's where I really became, familiar with the fact that I was going to look at biology as a way in life. But my mother kind of connected me thinking that I was going to become a doctor. So I had in my mind that biology and being a physician were one and the same. Got into college and realized that I did not want to become a doctor. And it just took me one summer of shadowing a doctor to realize that is not what I want to do. But then I realized that there's so many other things you can do in biology, and I thought it was amazing that you could pursue this path. Well, anyway, got my bachelor's degree in biology. Didn't really know what I was going to do. Somebody told me about graduate school. Didn't even know that was a thing. And I thought, well, yeah, sure, I'll start applying to graduate schools where I can continue my love of biology. Did that, and it just kind of progressed down the road that way. And eventually realized that, well, what am I going to do with all this knowledge? And it seemed there were several ways to go. I could join a consulting company and do research and that sort of thing, or I could go teach. And I did discover during my PhD that I loved teaching. I did a lot of TAing and teaching assistantships, things like that I just loved. And I thought, well, I think that's probably next for me. See if I can get a job as a professor. And I did. And actually, it's an interesting story. When I first graduated with my PhD, which was '96, I was applying for my first faculty positions. I was a finalist in several interviews. One of them was at Morningside College.
Oh, really?
I actually came out here for a finalist interview. They actually, in fact, offered me a job. But at the same time, I was offered a job in New York and ended up taking the job in New York. So interesting. I've been in Sioux City before, but long ago. But I think once I got into teaching and recognizing the significance you can have in a student's life, by not just the teaching, that's important, but just listening, being there for them, understanding what developmental needs they have and how you can contribute to that. And sometimes it's not you, sometimes it's directing them to the right resources. But there's really nothing a lot more fulfilling than seeing someone succeed and knowing that you've had a part of that. So I think that's what's driven me this whole time to keep on this path. At first it was, serving students, and that was the kind of sole thing that drove me. But at a point in my career, I was asked to step up to be a department head, which my advisor at my PhD said, don't ever do that. This is a terrible idea. It's going to crush your research career and so on. And I did love research, and I was leery of it, but it really, I wasn't given a lot of opportunity. There was like, we need somebody, and you're the guy. You're going to step up and do it. And I did, and discovered within a very few months that I loved it, that I had kind of a talent for it. And then it gave me agency in things that I had always wished I could do. Suddenly I was able to do. And that sort of started me on that path of recognizing that you can serve students, but you can also serve those who serve students. And that became really kind of a passion point for me. How do I serve faculty? How do I serve staff that are there for the students? So that broadens my ability to have impact on students. And I think that's kind of what got me on this path.
And here you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I just find that fascinating. I think that, we can never be grateful enough for those who have the gift of teaching and have a heart for teaching. I think, we can all agree that forming young people is so important, for that foundation for our society. And I think it's so beautiful that God gave you that gift. And in addition, the gift of administration, which we, know is one of the charisms in, I would think that would be a really unique perspective to bring to the position that you are in now as a president of a university, that you've had that experience working with teachers, you've had that experience serving the professors themselves. So I would think that would be a really big gift to our local community for you to have that background. Thanks. What drew you to this particular position and Sioux City?
It's a great question, and I think it's an interesting one, because if you had asked me just a few short months ago, maybe 18 or so, I probably, would have not said that I saw a presidency in my future. I had moved to McMurray University to become the provost there, and I did that because I wanted more agency in decision making. I really wanted to have, a job that would allow me to make the big decisions that universities make about program development, about policy, those kinds of things. And as a dean, you get to influence those decisions, but not make those decisions. As a provost and a vice president, you do get to help make those decisions. And I love that. And I like being in the weeds. I like problem solving. I like those kinds of things. And I thought, I think I found it. This is my calling. I'm really good at this. And I don't think I would have really considered moving to the next level if it were not for the fact that the president at McMurray, who was in her 10th year, decided she was going to retire. And I hadn't really contemplated that up to that point, so I thought, wow, okay, really need to think of what I might do. And it was her encouragement that she thought I should begin to apply for presidencies. She kind of led me through a couple of months of discernment around this concept, because I did not think I would necessarily be good at this. There are things that you do as a vice president that you don't do as a president, and vice versa. And I thought, I don't know if this is really right for me. She convinced me that it was the right thing to at least try, and so I began looking for jobs. And one of the very first ones I found was Briar Cliff. It was an advertisement, and what was really funny about it is I was reading that advertisement. And the very next morning got an email from Dr. Harper. She was the president at McMurray, and she said, hey, this looks like a really good fit for you. And the reason was, we were both Catholics, so we were at a Methodist institution, but both of us were Catholics, and she knew how I felt about my job at Siena Heights, which was a Catholic institution in Dominican tradition, which I loved that extent of my career. And she said, no, this just feels like you. Read the charisms. You think you're going to love this. And I read, I said, Dr. Harper, I saw this last night. I was contemplating applying for it. She just encouraged me to do it, and I did, and I guess the rest is history.
Well, now you've moved from Dominican charisms to Franciscan.
Yes.
So these will be some quiz questions for you as as a fairly new president. Yeah. If listeners aren't familiar with Briar Cliff, do you want to share a little bit maybe about the Franciscan sisters and those Franciscan values?
Yeah. It was interesting when I was applying for the job. I did a little background work and tried to figure out, where did this institution come from? When was it founded? Who founded it? Those kinds of things. Obviously became aware that it was founded in 1930 by the Sisters of St. Francis, Dubuque. Now, not knowing Iowa very much, I thought, now, where's Dubuque in relation to Sioux City? And I was surprised to find out that they couldn't be any farther apart.
Correct.
One on the Mississippi River, one on the Missouri River. I was like, wow, that's interesting. And to learn the backstory about how Bishop Heelan and, the sisters came together to make this university possible, it was pretty neat, pretty inspiring story. And so it's been a university founded in 1930. That's kind of exciting. To me, that was one of the callings for me, was the fact that this university will hit its centennial in 2030. Oh. And I thought, man, that could not be more exciting to be the president of an institution when it hits its centennial. So, I talked about that on my interview, and it was kind of funny. Some people are like, oh, yeah, centennial coming up. But I thought, man, this is just a phenomenal opportunity for us to kind of, build all of our next actions around that celebration coming up. So, yeah. So anyway, it was founded by the Sisters of St. Francis. Their signature and DNA is all over that university. The Franciscan charisms are deeply embedded there. It's a place where you can feel a fierce, pride in our Catholicism, a fierce pride in our Franciscan values. It's a really wonderful place. I think the other thing that stood out to me about Briar Cliff was that I went to a Catholic university, Thomas More, at the time Thomas More College, now Thomas More University in northern Kentucky. And when I read more about Briar Cliff, I saw the symmetry between my experience at Thomas More, where I had an encouragement to explore my faith and explore intellectual interconnectedness, and that was of great value to me. And I felt at the time like I imagine that's what the educational experience is at Briar Cliff, and it is. I mean, it's once I got here, I saw the similarities. So, yeah. Anyway, but what else can I tell you about Briar Cliff?
Again, if someone's not familiar with Briar Cliff, and I know Carmen attended a Catholic university, I was a state school girl, why should you encourage your high schooler, or if you are a high schooler listening, why should students consider a Catholic university, specifically Briar Cliff here in Sioux City?
It's I think there's a couple things. One is that Catholic universities, are deeply entrenched in that liberal arts tradition, and I'm going to expand that in a moment, because I think it's not just liberal arts tradition, but it's also the Catholic intellectual tradition that is very important. And so if I start with the liberal arts, to me, liberal arts has always been about creating kind of an interdisciplinary understanding of the world. That, you don't, if let's say you're a biology major like I was, that you're going to, of course, have a core experience learning biology and science, but that the questions you're grappling with as a biologist or as a scientist can be informed by a 360-degree view of other disciplines. What can you learn about a science question from a philosopher? What can you learn about a science question from an artist? What can you learn from a great piece of literature or history or those sorts of things? And I think Catholic universities do an exceptional job of challenging students to view their world through that 360-degree lens and integrating knowledge.
So, what else might appeal to students? I know that there's been a little bit of construction going on, and maybe the campus itself, again, if people aren't familiar, maybe some of those more visual things that might appeal to students.
Well, there's been some construction on, we've had Faber Field finished for us, which is a brand new football and soccer complex. I think that's a really a highlight. Alverno Hall had a big renovation, and it's I've talked to students who now are living in there and really very happy with the residential experience in Alverno Hall. Been some other construction projects on campus that I think are meaningful. Like all institutions, we have a long list of deferred maintenance as well. So we've got upcoming projects on other residence halls and things like that. But even though it's nearly 100 years old, the bones of Briar Cliff are very good. I think that, when parents come on and get a chance to walk around, they realize, well, this is an old campus, but it has been well maintained with a lot of love. And although as I say, there's always things for us to work on. We've got potholes to fill and all sorts of things. This is a place that gets plenty of winter. Yes. There's things to work on, but I think it's a good experience from that standpoint.
It is a beautiful campus, and I was able to see the atrium that was created, and
so
this, I've never seen anything quite like that, and I just thought it was really special.
I love that concept of kind of building that atrium on the back of a historic building like that. Creates a really great space for students to mingle and study and do all that they do. I like to go over there. It's a good place for me just to sit and meet students and talk and relax a little bit myself, get a cup of coffee, and you're right. That is a really inspiring space on campus.
So I encourage a tour if anyone hasn't been there, and make sure you see the atrium.
Yeah.
And the chapel is definitely a very peaceful place as
Yeah.
well, in my experience. I think that would be another great place to visit for people who haven't been.
Completely agree, and it's connected, obviously, so you don't even have to go outside
Yes.
in the winter. You can just slip right on over to the chapel. I do that as well, go over there and spend some time. Also, there's a little prayer garden out back behind the chapel that is, I guess, really my favorite place. If I can be outside on campus, it's
maybe
really,
not
really
today.
beautiful. Yeah, today may not be the day, but it is another really peaceful and beautiful spot. There's a lot of great spots, and of course, the view from the hill is amazing. It's a great spot.
It is.
Well, I think it's just phenomenal that you are looking towards the future of Briar Cliff with excitement, and you're making so many plans in that direction. So can you tell us a little bit more about the Foundations for the Future campaign that was just launched this fall?
Oh, yeah. So before I arrived as president in July, the university had spent some time thinking about, should we, embark on a capital campaign, and we consulted with the Steyer Group, which works with Catholic entities all over the country, and they did some great groundwork for us and said, you are positioned well for, at the time we thought, a capital campaign. But as we looked at our real needs, we realized it's not all capital. Our biggest need, because I hadn't mentioned this earlier, I hadn't had the opportunity to talk about it yet. Our primary goal, I wouldn't say it's our mission, but it's basically our goal, is to make this Catholic education affordable. So the most important thing is making it available to students who might otherwise not have that opportunity. So it's all about affordability. How do you do that? Well, you do that by providing funded scholarships. And so we knew we've got a really nice base of funded scholarships, but we would like to see it grow, because the larger we can make that funded base of scholarships, the more families we can invite into Catholic intellectual tradition and this experience. So we realized it's time to pivot this concept of a capital campaign to a comprehensive campaign and raise money, yes, for capital projects. There's going to be a student experience aspect to the Foundations for the Future. But probably the most important thing is raising scholarship dollars. So we're really excited about it. That has really, when you go out and talk to potential donors about the impact a gift of scholarship makes to a family, they see it right away. And when they see, well, here's the cost of higher education. And what's really interesting is that people think that private higher education is very, very expensive. And we have an odd model. We really do. We have an odd tuition model where we have a price that's out there on the market, and that's a signal to the quality of our education. But at the same time, we don't expect almost anybody to pay that entire price. Briar Cliff is not alone in this.
Right.
Every university that's private in our same specter has the same model, I guess, if you will. But families make a very good choice often to come to a private higher education because it's extremely affordable. Especially at Briar Cliff. I know we are the most affordable private university in the area. So anyway, when you tell that story to potential donors, they see it. It really feeds their passion, and we've had great success already in the silent phase of the campaign, raising money for that purpose. So we're almost at 65% of our goal.
That's incredible.
For the campaign already.
Congratulations.
With lead gifts and major gifts, and we will go public with this campaign in the middle to late January.
Okay.
We did a soft announcement of it a couple of weeks ago, and there's been kind of a groundswell of interest in helping Briar Cliff. So we're humbled.
Well, Briar Cliff has really served those in our community and in our diocese, for almost 100 years. And I know that it's important for families. I work in the faith formation department, but also know so many Catholic school families. And, just knowing that there is a Catholic university that is close for those who might not want to travel a long ways in our diocese is so important and such a gift. And there are so many ways to support Briar Cliff. And we know that, as you mentioned, the campaign will, kind of become public in January. But we also have the Catholic Schools Week Briar Cliff Sunday collection throughout the diocese the weekend of February 1st and 2nd. So that's another great way for us to each, consider how we might support the mission of Briar Cliff and really offer our gratitude for all that it does for those in our diocese.
Thank you. That's a good plug.
That's what we're here to help do. And there will be more information about that collection coming out in all of our communications. So I should ask you, you are the president, but I didn't know if you took direction from my friend Sister Mary Jane on campus.
She's not. Yeah, she's my spiritual leader. She's my boss.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that.
I've got a number of bosses on the campus that I look up to and seek counsel from.
She'd be a
Sister
good
Mary
one.
Jane's amazing. I saw her. We did the open steeple. I forget what it was called.
Tourist steeples.
Yeah, that was awesome this last weekend, and saw her. So yeah, she's great.
You are very blessed to have her, and happy that we could work in a shout out for a sister.
Yeah.
She's an institution for sure.
She stops by my office literally every morning before she heads over to the library. Sometimes I get a hug. It depends on how busy I am, but yeah, blessed to have Sister.
Oh, she is wonderful. She is part of our parish, so I get to see her from time to time. She pretty much runs St. Joseph Church as part of Cathedral Parish. So if you go to St. Joseph, you will see Sister second row center.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Well, Dr. Draud, President Draud, I know you told us not to be formal, and I know your students call you Father Matt. Or I'm sorry, Dr. Matt. Father, wow. Yeah. We do appreciate you coming in and sharing a little glimpse into Briar Cliff University with us.
Me.
Yeah, we were just absolutely tickled that you took us up on our invitation. And again, if you're maybe from the eastern part of the diocese and don't know about Briar Cliff, again, you gave us a little glimpse, and it is definitely worth considering and visiting and supporting. So I thank you for actually coming in on site, and wish you a Merry Christmas. Thank you for being part of our show.
Yeah, thank you. Merry Christmas.
And thank you to all of our listeners for following us. We hope you enjoyed this episode with Dr. President Draud. And thank you for following us. We can't wait to share. We've got some fantastic upcoming episodes to share with you because there's always something to learn about the faith. Take care. Thank you for listening to this episode of Illuminating Catholics, shedding light to understand the modern church. Follow us for more episodes on topics of the Catholic faith. For more diocesan news, visit lumenmedia.org.